Folks, you know what? Keep emailing us. We're really, as the podcast grows, we're enjoying the input from you folks into what you like to hear, what you like us to talk about, the questions, those big pervasive questions. You know, I got a challenge for you. Stump us.
Do you feel the pressure to grow your business, but doing so feels a bit like drowning? Welcome to Slow Growth Business, the show for business owners and leaders to quiet the noise and lead your business to success, one day at a time, slow and steady. If you feel your business is running you and you're ready to run it, you've come to the right place. Now, here are your hosts, business coaches Jimmy DeGroot and me, Kyle Bullock.
We're entitling this, How to Leave with Grace.
Yeah. And specifically, like, what happens when people leave your business? And then we're talking about employees here.
Yeah. How do you view that? I mean, do you view that as, oh my gosh, the sky is falling. What am I going to do? What's your approach to that?
Yeah. Well, look, if regular listeners are already going to know, let's go to a relaxed state of mind.
Yeah.
We should have a sound effect for that. That, by the way, a sound clip. Go to a relax. So let's try to get you to a relaxed state of mind with when someone leaves. That's what Jimmy and I were just talking a second ago, and I was like, let's hit record because.
All right. Let me go get my herbal tea.
Yeah. Snap our fingers and have some incense burning and just chill. Okay, so me, data nerd. All right. This is old data, but it's rung in my ears nonetheless. People move, like physically move their home and or their job on average in America every 7 to 8 years. Another way you can look at that is if you look at your friend group, your close friend group, you may have one or two core friends that you're friends with for life, forever and ever. Right.
Yeah.
But the people that you're also hanging around with, like your next closest friends, that friend group changes, has a turnover, if you will, every 7 to 8 years. So who were you hanging out with 10 years ago? I'd bet probably there's a handful of people that you just don't see as much anymore because people move or things change or whatever, and you just don't see
families, etc. Yep.
So same is true of jobs. I think there was this kind of overstory that was kind of a baby boomer value generational thing, which is I'm going to be in that job for 20 or 30 years. And success is that I do that for 20, 30 years, and then I'm going to have a pension at the end and I retire with my gold watch.
Right.
And then my crazy generation comes along and others like mine. And we're like, 7 years, I'm good.
I want to be happy. Let's try something else.
I just bring that up to say that as an employer, you have to kind of have an expectation that if you're hiring people, if you have someone 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, and then they leave, you're doing great. That's normal. That's just normal human behavior. So just relax about that. If you have the expectation that you're supposed to have somebody there for 20 or 30 years, and you do, you are an exception to a rule.
You're lucky.
Yeah. Well, we hope that 20 or 30-year-old, year going employee is also one that's growing with you and isn't just stuck in the mud.
Right.
But I digress.
Could be a sentence otherwise. But no, people are going to die. People are going to move. They're going to, that's life.
Just get used to it, right? So one day, as a manager, as an owner, if you're hiring anybody, they're going to come to you with the letter or a statement, say, I'm leaving. I'm going away. And there's all kinds of ways to take that. And you kick this off by asking, well, how do we part ways with grace and do that well? And the way that people leave and what they say on the way out the door, it matters. And it's so deep that we were talking before this podcast. I think I'm going to create stuff on our training platform, the management training platform, that's specifically about how you do a good exit interview, because there's so much value there. But
you know what I want when somebody hands me that letter? I want tears in their eyes saying, I don't want to leave. I love this place, but I got it. You're the best. You're the best boss I've ever had.
Well, you've had this happen to you, and I have as well. And it will happen again because we hire people and we have businesses that need other hands on deck. So when you got that note from a great employee, well, let's do both. A great employee, and then there's always the times that people leave and you're just like, oh, thank God.
See ya. Won't let the door hit you.
What's your reaction? How do you handle that news the moment you get it?
Well, I've had it both ways. And in both ways, I mean, sometimes I've had to fire somebody. And so I've had it three ways, negative, good, and then a firing, of course. And in every situation, I put myself in their shoes and I try to support them to the extent that, listen, they're leaving anyway. I want a good impression. I want them to feel good about this place. So I'm always just very, very encouraging and very supportive. I might be sad. I might be kicking, myself under the table with anger because now I got to go find somebody to replace you. And that's expensive and that takes a long time, right? To get training and cooperation and all that kind of good stuff. So I guess long story short is I just try to put myself in their shoes and be as supportive of it be as supportive as I can,
Yeah.
no matter what that is. It's got to be a positive departure.
Yeah.
And I make it as positive as I possibly can.
Because you never know when that person might come back in your life or when you might need to call on that person who's going to another position and you're like, hey, you do this new thing now and I could use your help.
Yeah.
And, you just never know when people come back in your life.
Or they've had, 300 people that come to see them once a year in the jewelry business, for example, where we're in. And gosh darn it, I don't want them going and, trashing me with all of those people. So just got to love on people and support them.
Yeah. I agree with everything you said too. I very much believe you should just put yourself in their shoes, think about their needs. And I would add to that I try not to ever, and I hope I never do anymore, talk somebody out of a decision like that.
Right.
Or try to beg someone to stick around. If someone's decided it's time to go or it's time to leave, no matter what, I go, that's your choice. I'm not here to make you do anything. Great leaders don't make people do stuff. That comes from our compliance and cooperation episodes. They inspire people and they can influence, because leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. But if someone says it's time for me to go, then you can look at them and just smile and go, all right, and accept that. And it's interesting. I've observed when I've done that and people have responded that way to me, or I've done that to somebody else, surprisingly, I think I observed that the person who's leaving feels oddly supported in that way. It's not like someone's begging them like, oh, please stay, or, like, oh, don't let the door hit you on the way out, buddy. They just sort of feel like you actually do care about their well-being wherever they're going to next, because hopefully you do.
Yeah.
And the way you do that is by saying, okay, all right, it's time that this chapter closes.
Okay. So I love some of the introspection that you had. You were speaking earlier off microphone about what do you want people to say about you? I love that. Can you go deeper into some of that thinking in terms of, what do you want people to say?
Well, it struck me when we were on the last episode, something made me think about this as a way to kind of gauge your culture and even kind of see the effects of your leadership is to ask yourself, when someone leaves, because it will happen at some point if you're hiring people, what do you want them to say about you and your organization and on the way out the door? Right? How do you want them to talk?
Do you do exit interviews?
I do. I try to do exit interviews. Not now. There are certain circumstances where that would maybe not be appropriate or something.
Yeah.
Like if you're firing someone, there might be times where that's not necessary. But absolutely, and it's very, very enlightening, very helpful. And I've learned good methods from other leaders on how to do that. But what you can learn, don't do this as an exercise to try to like make yourself feel better about yourself or like, go ego, boosting your ego or anything.
Lessen the blow.
Right. But really listen to the things that they're saying about how they feel about the organization and then how they feel about leaving. which gives you an indication about how they feel about when they were there. I think you might get 3 responses. I'm just kind of shooting from the hip here, but I can imagine generally you probably won't hear them say anything about, like, they're just going to give you the resignation and off they go. And in that case, you don't know. They may be upset. They may not be happy. They were unfulfilled. Might have been your fault. Might not have been your fault. So in those cases, I usually am very, very curious. Like, why did they leave? They didn't say. And sometimes it's appropriate to follow up. Sometimes it may not be. But I think a lot of cases will end that way. Sometimes you'll have people say some ugly things, and some very bright words on the way out the door. And you really don't want those situations on your hands. It can happen, right? We just try to avoid that at all possible. And you just have to meet people where they are.
Mm-hmm.
If someone brings you a letter of resignation and it's a surprise to you and you're not close to that person, it really depends on how close you are.
Yeah.
How much time have you as a leader spent coaching them, learning about their heart? Generally, a leaving shouldn't surprise you.
Yeah.
If it does surprise you and you're close, your next impulse probably will be, what's going on? Are you okay?
Yeah. Well,
right?
That might also be indicative of your lack of coaching and being there for them.
Which is maybe when you look at someone who's giving you like no answer as to their leaving or reason for their leaving, then maybe that's because you didn't have a close relationship to begin with. What you might also find is that they probably have told somebody else if they're close to somebody else on staff, maybe they told somebody else on staff what's going on. And that's why they're leaving. And it didn't surprise that person on staff, but you as a leader are surprised. And now you're like, wait a second, I'm not a part of the culture like I thought I was.
Right.
What you, of course, really want, I think the third option you can get back is when someone comes back to you and says, man, I've absolutely loved this place and I hate leaving, but I have to go for XYZ reasons.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's super. That's great, But I wouldn't go fishing for one of those responses. I would just want to hear objectively and then take that. And then what I would do with the information that I got from the employee who's leaving is I would make note of it, thank them, not try and talk them out of anything, set the date when they're going to leave. And then I'd probably go to my office and call my leadership coach and go, hey, Andy, this is what I found out. And this is what they said and their reasons for leaving. Reflect back to me what's going on. Is this a good thing, bad thing? I would want some coaching for myself as a leader to go, how do I make sense of this?
Well, let me ask you this. Let's say you found out that Tina's quitting because she hates Sarah and Sandra and they're always ganging up and talking about it. So you got this kind of bickering kind of thing going on. It's a reality. They may be quitting not because of you guys. How do you, and then she sits in the exit interview and says, well, it gives you a bunch of reasons that she thinks you want to hear as opposed to the real thing. How do you get at the real issue? Would Andy tell you that, or would you ever call like a store meeting and do some type of intervention, so to speak? I'm wondering how I would handle that as well.
Right. Yeah. Because the situation you brought up happens all the time.
Mm-hmm. Would you bring the other two parties in and say, let's chat about this? Or I don't know. That's a tough one.
It's so hard to create general answers on a podcast for all kinds of situations out there. Yeah. Because the situation you gave, while it's very, very common, I think has about 15 different ways to approach it.
Oh, it's got more. It's got more
1,500 ways.
Because of the personalities involved and the issues and whatever it is. It may be sexual harassment. It may be just, friends bickering or not friends bickering, it could be a lot of things.
Right. Maybe to answer that, I rely so much in my own career, in my own life on having mentors and coaches around me that provide those external voices of wisdom. I mean, you're one of them. I've mentioned my coach Andy. I've got my core group of people that I'll be reaching out to. I've called you on a situation like this. It was a positive one, but I'm like, hey, this is what's going on, and I know that you're going to reflect back to me. Yeah. You could, if I had done something stupid as a leader, you'd be like, okay, you need to be doing XYZ because you're a knucklehead back there. And I go, oh yeah, you're right. So you just got to surround yourself with people that can give that advice to you, so that if that circumstance comes up, you look at those people and you go, all right, coach me, guys. Mm-hmm. What am I missing and what should I do?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I wonder okay, so an example may be your leadership style, and they bring that up. Really kudos to them for bringing that up, because it's hard to say, you're the problem. It's hard to say you're the problem as a leader. Rather, it's easier to say, just, I'm going to tell you what I think you want to hear, and then I'm going to get the heck out of here. I guess I would look at that, and you always got to kind of bite your tongue a little bit, and you always kind of got to, lower your ego. And sometimes you got to hear the tough stuff. And a lot of times, honestly, guys, I think it might be you. It might be something that you're doing, or the way you're leading or not leading the organization. And I'm only bringing this up because I can recall an instance where somebody left because not everybody was treated fairly, because our best salesperson could always get away with such and such, coming in late, dress code or whatever. And I wasn't told that in the interview, but I heard that afterwards. Sometimes it's a tough pill to swallow as a leader, but I think the tougher the pill to swallow, the bigger the challenge. I think you're up to it as a leader, and to go get help for it.
Well,
and call Jimmy and Kyle.
That's right.
Coach. Yeah.
That's right. So John Maxwell, someone I quote very often, full of wisdom, would say that experience isn't what brings you wisdom and growth. Evaluated experience brings you wisdom and growth, which means just because you went through someone leaving your store doesn't mean that you're like a better leader now. It just means that you've experienced that. It's when you evaluate what happened.
Ooh, I like that.
Perhaps the way to do that best is when you have people that you can lean on, who can give you that the evaluation. So maybe this is the secret. I didn't even know where it was going to go. But as we talk about, when you get the news, accept it, be in their shoes in that moment, think about what they're thinking about, and don't try and talk them out of anything. Mm-hmm. Take note of their reasons, if any, and then when they leave, go get evaluated. And while you might be doing an exit interview with the person leaving, perhaps you should also have an exit interview with you who's staying. And you should have someone else that you trust, a leader, a coach that you look up to, and you give them the circumstance and you go, all right, I need you to give me a performance evaluation as a leader on this situation. And then they give you the exit interview, even though you're staying.
Yeah.
Maybe it gives you the confidence. You're like, things are going great, and this was a happy leaving. Or maybe you go, you know what? It's time for us to work on some things. Evaluate your experience.
So I don't think we need to wrap it up any further than that, Kyle. You just done it.
We did it. Done.
Hey, folks, you know what? Keep emailing us. We're really, as the podcast grows, we're enjoying the input from you folks into what you like to hear, what you like us to talk about, the questions, those big, pervasive questions. I got a challenge for you. Stump us. Stump the coaches. Yeah, we want to be stumped. I think that'd be kind of fun to be stumped.
We hope you leave this episode a little better than when you first began. If you'd like more resources to grow your business slow, steady, and consistently, check out our on-demand video catalog at trainretail.com. Or if you have a question or frustration we can help address in your business, write to us about it. We love to help solve big, ugly problems. So hit us up at kyle@trainretail.com or jimmy@trainretail.com. Good luck out there, and we will see you next time.